Hey, it's Monday, November 16th. We are a week and 3 days before Thanksgiving, one of my favorite holidays, in case you care. But we are here on Litvak Leadership Live with my special guest today, Robin Miller from Nest Community Marketing. Hey, Robin, how are you?
Hi, Sean. How are you? You made me think about my cranberry chutney when you mentioned Thanksgiving. Now I'm excited.
Yeah, Thanksgiving is just, I know people are putting up trees
Not me.
and well, yeah, I know not you. Other people are putting up menorahs
No,
and
not until the day after Thanksgiving. I wait. I give
thank you.
Thanksgiving its due. Like it'll happen right after Thanksgiving, but not not until poor Thanksgiving never gets all its due.
Yeah, and of course, if you hear dogs barking, that is my house, not Robin's house, because of course, as the tradition is, half the time my golden retriever Solomon, if you've ever watched The Morning Walk with Solomon and Sean, decides to bark. But so we are here today to talk about. Oh, I love the bark. Nest Community Marketing, and Robin is a woman-owned business, but she's worked with some pretty high-profile people. Can you share any of your customers? Are you comfortable doing that?
Sure. Yeah, I went out on my own about 6 years ago. So my business is 6 years old now. And I think even when I worked for other people in full-time jobs before I started my business, I worked for some pretty high-profile places. For example, I was at the Louisville Science Center, which we rebranded while I was there. I was kind of in charge as the director of brand advancement, in charge of rebranding that from Louisville Science Center to Kentucky Science Center. So some high profile places even before I went out on my own. I also worked at Home of the Innocents, a great organization. They always have a need, but definitely this time of year they have extra needs. So if you guys are considering doing things like that. But 6 years ago, I went out on my own and I started my own business, and I work with people. I've worked with the zoo, Friends of the Louisville Zoo. I work with a great organization that Sean and I are both a part of. That's how we know each other, the International Facility Managers Association or Management Association, IFMA, Greater Louisville. I actually just got a new client in Florida, kind of in the housing field.
Very cool.
Lots of different clients. And, one of a fun project that I really enjoy every summer, although we didn't get to do it this summer because of COVID, but Yale University is actually one of my clients through the Yale and Kentucky Club. So we bring in interns in a program called Bulldogs in the Bluegrass, and I help them every summer come to town.
Very cool. Very cool. So tell everyone, how did you get into hatching and helping people?
I have always worked for nonprofit associations, either charitable nonprofits or 501c6 trade association nonprofits. And I've done it for about 25 years, if you include my own business. But every time I was with those trade associations, I would have my members come to me all the time, sort of offline, asking for advice about things or help with their company, and just kind of wanting to have a creative session to brainstorm either a new product they were trying to launch or a new customer they were trying to go after or something. Yeah. And throughout all of those kind of conversations, people kept saying, you really should consult. You should really consult. And I actually really don't care for the word consult because it makes it sound not like a partnership. It sounds like an expensive vendor, and I don't want to be an expensive vendor. I want to be an affordable partner. So I, thought long and hard about it. And when my daughter was about 3 years old, I thought that it would be a really good opportunity to go out on my own, to have some more flexible hours. Although, as you know, with your entrepreneurial spirit, entrepreneurs are willing to work 80 hours for themselves more than they want to work 40 hours for themselves. And it's just different hours during the day. So I wanted some flexibility from, with my motherhood hat on, but I also wanted to be able to really help these small organizations that couldn't do it. And so thus the company was born.
Okay. So has Nest Community Marketing been everything you had hoped it would be? And I'm sure the standard answer is, it's exceeded your expectations. but what was your original vision, and where is it now?
Yeah, my original vision is largely still a part of what the company is, and then I've added some things along the way. The original vision would be that I would take on a few different organizations to serve as their outsourced executive director. So these
Okay.
would be organizations, nonprofit charities and nonprofit trade associations, 501c3 and 501c6 tax designation. These would be organizations that were too small to hire a full-time staff and a really large strategic department and all of the department heads that they would need, but too small to not have anybody. And so I wanted to serve as an outsourced executive director, part-time in a really affordable budget, bringing my skill set to the table. And I'm largely doing that. I do that for a few different organizations, but it has also evolved where some organizations need outsourced, say, marketing help, because I'm a marketing person, as sort of my true north. So serving as an extension of your marketing team. Some of my clients just like a strategic partner, and they need me to work on what I call strategy on the fly, which are a few strategic sessions where they're saying, hey, I'm trying to go after this customer, or I'm trying to design this program, or I want this new member to join, or we need to create a fundraising program, whatever kind of the stop and start thing is. And within strategy on the fly, it becomes a very fluid ideation kind of a session. Sometimes that leads into implementation, as well as just kind of the coaching through the strategic stuff. And then, so those become episodic kind of products and projects.
So tell us more about strategy on the fly, because here I've got Litvak Leadership, and
Yep.
I'm driving it down the road, and I've recently put up a Facebook page for Litvak Leadership. I've got a YouTube channel. How does someone like me that's putting themselves out there, working in an entrepreneurial way, how would that work with strategy on the fly?
Yeah, it works really nicely for companies and people that are a little bit established already. It's not necessarily geared for the tiny little twinkle in your eye of an idea. It's when the idea is a little bit more fleshed out, and it can work really well if you are stuck and you're trying to kind of get to a different place. So that's one way that we use ideation or brainstorming. It could be that you are trying to develop a new program around something and you just don't really know where to start or how to do it, or all the pieces. And I come in and we just riff off of each other, if you will. And you might tell me something and I might say, hey, have you thought about this or that? Or have you made a connection to this person? Or I know this person, you might want to do that. And then we quickly draft what the thing might be, the thing that we're trying to solve. So, for your case, it might be that you're trying to get underwriters for this program. And we have a strategy on the fly set, which makes sense. You've gotten all this viewership now. It makes sense that you would take this program in that direction potentially down the line as a possibility. And, we could do a strategy on the fly session where we talked about what that looked like and how you would go about doing that. And all the elements and the steps that you would need to take to do it. Those strategy on the fly sessions are just like an hour long. And then sometimes I have people who would hire me for those, and we would do multiple sessions. And so it's kind of like a creative coach, if you will.
Got it. Oh, okay. So you help people flesh out and think of different ideas where people may be self-limiting, but it's one of those, hey, nothing is a bad idea type session, and let's talk through them.
Exactly. And I usually find that people do know these things, like innately they know them. They just haven't thought of them yet, and they hadn't had somebody where, oftentimes, especially entrepreneurs, sometimes, often feel alone. And they don't feel like they have somebody they could talk to, and even their spouses don't necessarily understand what it is that they do. And so we can just kind of, get excited and put things on paper and think through them. And then they give me more feedback, and then I build on that, and we just kind of go. And it really is done on the fly. And that's a large part of why people kept telling me to start to become a consultant, because they're like, you just gave me the best idea. I kept hearing that over and over again. And so I really like the idea of ideas.
So, I would ask you, when you first started out, how did you find your voice? But anyone who knows Robin, finding her voice is not an issue.
It is not an issue.
So when you first started, did you reach out to friends and relatives to be clients? Did you just, pull up your LinkedIn and say, I want to work with this kind of company, and look to see who you were connected to? How did you initially engage in the marketplace?
Sure. It's interesting because I incorporated my business in October of 2014. So like I said, just about 6 years. And I thought, oh, I'll take, 6 months and I'll plan out my marketing calendar and I'll do anything that I would have coached my clients on doing. I'm like, this is exactly how I'm going to do it and get all these processes in place and all that stuff. And like the second week of December, I had 3 clients that became annual clients right off the bat.
Wow.
And this was all word of mouth. My business that I do is all about people. And I think it's the good relationships that I had in my working career before I went on my own business. Started my own business. Those people were very instrumental. I took several people out for coffee and dinner as I was coming up with this idea to see if people thought it would even be a viable idea. I am a jumper inner, but I do a lot of research first before I jump in. Like I'm a cautious jumper inner, I should say.
Okay.
And so I spend a lot of time sort of vetting the idea around, other people. And I'm pleased to say that it's all word of mouth, how I've gotten my clients. I do very little, major marketing about it. And I think I just recently got a client that was like 6 connections deep, meaning I got a client who told someone else. I've been trying to track some of those.
That's like being connected to Kevin Bacon.
Exactly. I think, didn't they change him from 6 to some other number recently?
I don't know. So yeah, I think you have to be a certain age viewership to understand that.
Yeah, and I clearly
kids would say, "Who's he?"
I just divulged my age too, Sean. I know we're not that far off anyway.
So when you talk about how you initially took people out for coffee and took them out to dinner, to talk about the idea, why don't you talk a little bit how your circle of influence has supported and helped you steer your way through this?
Oh my gosh, definitely. I mean, there's no way I could have done it without them. So anybody who is in that sphere, and you guys know who you are, and if you don't, thank you. Thank you for being there for me. It's, I asked a lot of questions. I put some stuff out on paper, to see if it made sense. And, then I went back to them after the initial conversation when I launched and talked about it and kind of ran some stuff. So it was almost like having an informal advisory board. There were 3 or 4 people that really became sort of my quasi mentors or my quasi sounding boards on the idea. And that has really been very beneficial. And they've been there kind of the whole way through in a variety of fashion.
Like how?
At different times in my business where I felt stuck or I wanted to pivot a little bit, I would reach back out and say, hey, do you remember this thing that I've been doing? How would you think about if I did it this way? Or, do you know anything new trending in the marketplace right now that would help or not help this idea? All of those kinds of things. And so just kind of keeping them on speed dial, proverbially anyway, has been really, really helpful.
So with the pandemic and with what the media is reporting as a greater resurgence, how do you see your services can be beneficial to those companies out there?
It's interesting when COVID first happened, and I hope everybody out there is, safe and healthy and all of those kinds of things, because we're all in it together. But, when it first happened, I immediately kind of jumped in and I went with my clients and I said, okay, we've got to address this immediately. And I started meeting with all of the associations that I work with. We started meeting weekly. And I think it just gave people a place to come and to talk about it because it was unfolding. And the most interesting thing that I found was, for someone like me who likes to do a lot of brainstorming, and I actually like meetings and I like coming up with new ideas and new things to do, I'm a little bit nerdy and I'm a little bit of an outlier in that way. A welcome one and an unwelcome one sometimes, I might add. But I found myself kind of thriving during that time because everybody was in, it was a creatively thriving time for me because finally I felt like some people who were on the fence of whether or not they should try new things or were ready to try new things because they had. So I think that was really helpful, and just being able to connect in this way with my, boards that I work with and all this stuff, like in these ideation sessions so they could take what they were doing and pivot it to all these new ways. So I was initially a little concerned that, and I'm still a little concerned about this, that with the pandemic, some of the associations that I support may really struggle getting back on their feet because they've been down for so long of not meeting in person and, with membership dues and sponsorship dollars and all of those kinds of things. But by the same token, what I'm really trying to stress with people, and what I truly, truly believe, is that if you are part of your organization and have stayed in your organization, your professional organizations, and your professional circles, if you've stayed in it this whole past 9 months, you're going to be way far ahead when the
Right.
world, quote unquote, reopens again, when that whole re-entry happens, which, you know, is happening in waves and happening in the stair step and incrementally. But those people who haven't taken advantage of all those opportunities during this time, I worry for them. So I do, you asked the question of how I could help. A, I could help those people re-enter. B, and I don't want to take a job this way, but if there are organizations that have had to let go of staff,
Sure.
they can't afford a full-time staff, I would love to be their temporary solution while they get back on their feet. I don't want to take somebody's full-time job. I want to augment what somebody else is already doing. And so I think I can come in a outsourced kind of a way and quickly hit the ground running, because I've done these kinds of projects for so long, for 25 years, literally. So I think that's where there's a lot of opportunity. And in fact, I am pleased to report, and I was a little surprised by this, I've actually picked up several new clients over the past 9 months. They are shorter in scope, or smaller in scope and shorter in duration, I should say, than some of my more annual clients that are on retainer. But I think that's where the opportunity is. And that's where I think I can be really instrumental and very helpful, both on the for-profit side and on the nonprofit side.
So other than video, because, you know, sales has gone to video, meetings have gone to video, you know, here we are, Litvak Leadership Live on video.
Right.
What other recommendations have you made to clients about how they can be out there and still be top of mind to their constituents and customers?
Sure. So here's an example. It's a few months ago, several months ago now. I was at the coffee shop with my mask on, and I ran into and this actually, you know what, I take this back. This may have been right before COVID, but I ran into a former staff member of mine from when I worked at the Home of the Innocents, and she's in a new job now working for a nonprofit charity where she's trying to raise a lot of money, and she was nervous about how they were going to do that now. I guess maybe it was at the beginning of COVID, and we could still sit outside or something, but the days run together. And very impromptu, we sat down and enjoyed our coffee and tea together, and she was telling me about this. And so I did this strategy on the fly session with her. It was pro bono. It wasn't intended to be this. We just started talking about it. And I suggested, well, why don't you, and her audience of donors was a lot older. They didn't necessarily want to go on Zoom. They didn't necessarily want to leave the house. And I said, why don't you send them a tea bag in the mail with a direct mailing, you know, a little handwritten note, and say, call me, I'd love to schedule tea with you on the phone so we could talk about her organization. And a few months later, she wrote me and said, you know, Robin, I want to tell you that idea was amazing. I got so many people to return my call, and I sat down with so many donors to talk to them about it. So wow. I think just really, and I know I was really touched. I said, could I use this story? And she said, absolutely. And I hadn't used it yet, actually. I hadn't put it out there, but I did today on Litvak Leadership. You're the first people to hear it. But what was cool about it was, she came back to me too, which was really nice to hear that she enjoyed the idea and it was helpful to her. And I had forgotten, honestly, that I had told her about it or suggested it to her. And B, it was just kind of looking at her audience. And, you know, one thing we realized was that they were older and that didn't necessarily embrace the technology in the same way. They just wanted to pick up the phone or meet in person. We knew that they had a little more leisurely time. So that's where the idea of tea came in, of just, sure. And it's a warm organization. So the idea of tea versus coffee just sounded a little bit more cozy. And it was a lot of women that we were dealing with. And so we kind of just looked at all these different factors to figure that out. And I think that's a good example of a breakthrough kind of a thing. And, you know, it's continually, the other part to that question would be, you know, to continue doing all of these things, even when you're tired, even when you think your audience is tired, because at the end of the day, you want to be able to still tell your customers, clients, or members, whomever you're working with, that you've done all these things for them. Like, it's really important that you that you're still their person. You know, there are basic tenets in marketing and relationship building and community engagement that are there now that were there before and will still be there after. BC and after COVID. And that is, maintaining that level of engagement. Content is king. Content still works. I mean, I know you've done this in your business, like giving people new ideas about your same product that you put out there. Those things are still really, really important. Still being a transparent communicator, still providing options and opportunities for people to network, even in a different kind of a way. These are all basic tenets that will still be there, and just having to do them in a little bit of a different way.
So I've heard people refer to themselves as, Randy 2.0 or Randy 2.5 and things like that, and nomenclature like that. And I'm specifically referring to my friend Randy Chafee, who keeps talking a lot like that. Do you think video is here to stay and that it will be folded into marketing, or do you think that it's going to back up at some point?
I think video is here to stay, just as technology grows. But I do think that even video, and I hate to say it because I've been using the platform a lot too. I know you have. Mm-hmm. It's getting saturated as well. People are seeing a lot of video content, and that is making it hard. People are just overloaded. That's making it very challenging. So I think some of those basic tenets will still stay and still come back, of just basic ways to communicate. And I think what that is, it's still personal communication. It's still kind of one-on-one engagement with people, or several on one, small engagement, meeting them where they are. I mean, the basic rules of marketing are still going to be there, of creating that loyalty and that value and all the awareness. But yeah, I think video is here to stay. I imagine we'll see a lot more augmented reality, AR stuff coming up. There's a lot more of that happening. I think a lot more like that would be very immersive in the video. And I still think it's a very effective tool, video. I mean, we know if we look at TV ratings versus other, we know that that's pretty effective. So yeah, I think it's still here, but I do think that it is getting a little saturated. I think people are tired.
Oh, you hear about Zoom fatigue, or social media fatigue. Yeah. So your clients that work with the community and have to be out there, touching, looking, helping, assisting, lifting, how are they functioning in the situation in which we find ourselves at the moment?
Yeah, it's really, really challenging. My client, all last year, the Arts and Cultural Alliance, the ACA, specifically the arts community was really hammered during this time. And with people not being able to come and things having to be shut down. It's a challenge. I think people are just needing to, stay the course. I mean, that's the thing. Like, still don't abandon your strategic plan. Right. Don't abandon your core values and your core messaging. Just pivot that a little bit. Make case statements. But I know a lot of times, especially with organizations, nonprofit ones specifically, but also for-profit companies, they'll start focusing on the numbers and the data and the non-soft stuff. And the soft stuff, I think, is working right now because I think everybody's in the same boat. I think everybody recognizes that there's a human side to all of this stuff. So continually remembering to tell the story, remembering the why. I don't know if you've touched on this on your show or not, but if you've never seen this, Simon Sinek's Start with Why. It's a really great thing to get back to your kind of values of why you're doing what you're doing. Not just the what, not just the features and the benefits, but the real emotional reasons of why you do what you do. And that's important for these organizations right now to continue telling those stories so that the public can hear them, talking about the impact of these things. And that will continue to go more in their direction.
Yeah, it's kind of like when I sit down and talk to people and coach them if they're looking to change careers or just grow in what they're doing. One of the first things that I always bring up is, okay, what's your why?
Right, exactly.
And most of the time they look at me, they go, well, what do you mean? I'm like, no, not what. I mean, why.
Right.
Locate your why. And it's funny because I was talking to my daughter about this the other day, and she's like, yeah, that's business school 101. I'm like, yeah, but do you know how many people don't think about that?
Right. And for them, it's business school 101, like your daughter's age and my daughter's age. But for us, that wasn't necessarily where we always started then. I mean, the idea of these like sort of, it's been around, but the core values and stuff is more of in the past, I don't know, somebody can correct me on this number probably, but 15 years or so, maybe longer than we were in school.
So when you think about the span of being an entrepreneur, I love to ask people, what have you gained wisdom and understanding in, and then how have you applied that knowledge?
Well, one of the things, and I'm sure as entrepreneurs, most of us are guilty of this. We work fast, we think fast, we work at weird hours, we do weird things. One of the things that I have found to be better, to be more beneficial, more better is not a word, but to be more beneficial is to the idea of time blocking. And I'd like to say it's my own idea, and it's just not. Somebody gave it to me. And that was like, when I heard that and started doing it, that was like liquid gold to me. It was, so for those of you who don't know what it is, time blocking is dedicating a few hours on each project, or 15 minutes, or, kind of setting your own biorhythm cycle of when you crank on a project. So that you're not constantly staccato, switching from email to Facebook to whatever, to this, to that. Now, obviously, some days you're not going to be able to avoid that. But the idea of time blocking has been hugely beneficial to me. I don't always stick to it, so I'm not going to sit here and be righteous about it, because that's not true. So that's one thing. The other thing that I learned really early on is, and the hard way I learned it, is you have to come up with a number that is the number that you're not willing to take. Like the number that just makes you feel icky, especially if you are a consultant, for example. Like, what is that base number per month or per project that would just, you do it, but then it's like not a healthy project all the way through. And everybody has that number. Too low.
Okay.
Too low. Yeah. That it becomes not worth your time. And then the third thing I would say is, and this I learned from somebody else as well in a class. Well, actually, I have a couple of more things to say, but this one is, the expression is in my experience. And so learning to say that has been really helpful to a client. Like, in my experience, I have found blah, blah, blah. So that it's a softer way to kind of open a conversation. And it demonstrates your level of expertise and experience in the area. And then the other one is, this is how I work. So that especially if and it's helpful. So they know what the expectation, for you is. So
sure,
you might give me a project and you would like it at a certain time. And of course I will meet your deadline because you're my client, but I might also say, hey, Sean, this is how I work. You'll give me this project. You may not hear from me from the next 24 hours. That means I'm doing it. So just if you don't hear from me, worry. So that's been a really helpful phrase too, just some of these catchphrases. And then I saw somebody wrote a chat in here, and I will agree with what they wrote in the chat. And that is, join a mastermind group, find a group of like-minded individuals who can help you talk about this stuff or work through this stuff. Just have, other people around you. Just because you have your own business, you don't know everything. I definitely don't know everything. And I need to rely on the other people around me to kind of help me figure out what I don't know.
So shockingly, we've gone 28 minutes already. Doesn't it just feel like 8? But we've gone 28 minutes. So in the final 2 minutes that we have left, what do you want people to take away from this conversation when they say, boy, Robin taught me? Go.
So 2 minutes is like the fastest horse race on earth, right? The Kentucky Derby is 2 minutes. But, I think the thing that I truly believe in my heart of hearts is you have to love what you're doing. So figure out how to love what you're doing and why you love what you're doing. So do it with heart and some passion, but run it like a business. It's not, you're not running on emotions. You should have heart and passion in it, but it's still a business, and you have to put the business, the business facets in there. I do believe that anything is possible. I'm a glass half full kind of a thinker with sort of a growth mindset. So I think you can try, even if it doesn't work, and that's okay. but you can at least say you've tried something. Surround yourself with some people who are, get it as well as you do and that you can work with. And there are solutions to every problem. So there are things that you can do to take yourself to the next level and stay relevant. I mean, I'm sure you've heard that I'm not telling you anything spectacular on that one, but that's really important still, to be very relevant to what's going on.
That is all good information. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the invitation. I'm so glad that you're doing these. I think these are great for the community, speaking of community, and you're expanding every viewer's community by watching these. So by putting them out there and so they can watch them.
Absolutely. What kind words? I love it.
Kind words have never been spoken. Kind words have never been spoken.
So look, my viewers, if you want to get in touch with Robin, her website is a mouthful, but it's Robin at, this is the email, not the website, obviously, nestcommunitymarketing.com. So you can go to her website, nestcommunitymarketing.com, or you can send her an email at robin@nestcommunitymarketing.com.
Yeah, and you only have to type it in once, and then it just shows up, so you don't have to type it multiple times.
Shows up forever. So yeah. So Robin, thank you again for being my guest. It was a great conversation, and Robin and I have been on video together now since the middle of March, almost every single week with IFMA. So we're kind of used to looking at each other in this way. So everyone have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.